is one of the most fascinating regions of Italy. Hanging on mountains that plumb over a beautiful blue sea, it has created a strange and split character in the inhabitants, which are divided into a unique mountain tradition and an almost obligated marine vocation. We are talking about Liguria, a unique and luminous land full of fascination and legend. The territory is known, looks like a vast and elegant amphitheater. Its stage stairs are the Marine Alps and the Appennino Ligure, and its stage is the sea. Genova is the obligated starting point to visit this land. Very few capitals of the region are in fact so full of the traditions of their region as is this solar and active city, forever anchored to its sea, that it seems to penetrate into its urban texture. The heart of the city is Piazza de' Ferrari, a large and luminous space on which leads the most important road, Via 20 Settembre. A great fountain in bronze surrounded by important buildings like Palazzo della Borsa. A few blocks away is one of the oldest doors of the medieval city, Porta Soprana, also called of Sant'Andrea, dating back to the 12th century and from which you enter the districts of the antique Acropolis. An obligated touristic site to see around this area is that of the House of Columbus, an 18th century reconstruction which, according to the tradition, the famous navigator used to live as a young man. Next to this, an elegant cloister, that of Sant'Andrea, made of binate columns dating back to the 12th century. A short walk away, there is Piazza Matteotti, closed from the image of the church of Sant'Ambrogio and dominated from the prospect of Palazzo Ducale. A bit further on, we find the splendid facade of the Duomo dedicated to San Lorenzo and consecrated in 1118 from Pope Gelasio II. The most fascinating street of the city is Via Garibaldi. It is one of the most monumental arteries of Italy, traced in 1500 and bordered by splendid buildings on each side, like Palazzo Tursi, Palazzo Bianco, and Palazzo Rosso, all an important and major point for the culture of the city. They are all united today in the offer of the museums of Strada Nuova, a recent institution of museums that offers a unitary road in an angle of the city that has become part of the prestigious list of UNESCO, as the place is considered Patrimony of Humanity. In particular, Palazzo Rosso, that maintains its aspect of the old regal homes, has a vast and beautiful art gallery with great pieces such as Tiziano, Pisanello, Veronese, Tintoretto, Caravaggio, and besides other important collections, pesi genovesi, numismatic ceramics from Liguria. Yet other places remind us of extraordinary cultural richness of this beautiful city. And in fact, here we are at Palazzo Reale, a grand edifice dating back to the 17th century. It is a splendid example of the patrician homes of the 17th century, which has on its noble floor the Galleria of Palazzo Reale, with prestigious pieces of Guercino, Luca Giordano, Guido Reni, as well as a collection of tapestries and oriental ceramics. Then we have the amazing Palazzo del Principe, one of the most singular and exuberant Genoese ancient buildings of the 16th century. It was renovated by Andrea Doria, who lived in it from the year 1529 to the year 1547. The external facade is overlooking the port and dominated by a splendid Italian garden, while the internal rooms are adorned with precious decorations and tapestries and splendid art pieces, one of which is the famous Fuga in Egitto by Caravaggio. Let us now direct ourselves to the sea, which seems to be literally embracing the entire urban area. The whole city is a splendid seacoast, lined by little beaches and angles of extraordinary visual suggestion, like the delightful village of Boccadasse, which is particularly loved by the Genoese. And at last, the port, the most important of Italy and of the whole Mediterranean. It is an active and industrious port, and it has again become a center of social activity and fun. The now celebrate Bigo of Renzo Piano, which reveals a beautiful view from the top of the plain, is a meeting point of the people and occasion of fun and culture for everyone. In front of Palazzo San Giorgio, composed of a Gothic part dating back to 1260, is the fresco of the prospectus in the Renaissance. Today, the whole area is called Acquaria Village and offers unusual and very modern visits for the young and old. Starting from the aquarium, which is the largest in Europe, we have an immense and amazing wildlife and flora. It is so magnificent that it enables one to really live the underwater world in modernized areas and of extraordinary visual suggestion. The great pedestrian park then comprehends the biosphere, an enormous spheric construction containing an immense greenhouse. But the surprises don't finish here. We come by the powerful vision of a real galleon, which was the real set of a famous Roman Polanski film, Pirates. And we then direct ourselves towards the Galata Museo del Mare, a splendid voyage in the world of past marine life. Ship models and the reconstruction of antique veils with an amazingly realistic representation of the travel conditions that the old immigrants confronted. There is even a part dedicated to the submarines that will enable us a first acquaintance of the operative life of fascinating military means not known to many. And it is with the trip to the submarines that we conclude our stroll along this amazing urban space. It is a new and unique visit to the inside of the Nazario Sauro, one of the biggest Italian submarines of the 80s, docked here today and has become the first floating museum in the world. This is an experience one will never forget, accompanied by a surrounding ambient sound which recreates the perfect atmosphere of the ship as it is functioning. We walk and discover every angle, the great motors, the small sleeping berths and spaces of common life, up until the navigation room, heart of the ship, and to the torpedo room, which reminds us of military destination of the ship. It is now time to go and discover the other treasures of the region. Genoa graphically divides Liguria in two zones, the Riviera di Ponente and that of Levante, both very rich in nature, sea, and medieval angles that have often reached world fame. As we go east, we find beautiful golden angles of the sea that have in years become a favorite place for the international jet set. Here we are, probably in the most famous place, Portofino. Situated in an extraordinary position in a small natural fjord on the peak of the homonymous mountain that is today a nature park, the small village, heir of an old beach of fishermen, is formed by a group of colored houses, but also by a few exclusive and luxurious houses. It is frequented by millionaire boats and the many tourists that stroll down the Bay Area in awe. Other villages illuminate the marvelous coast. We are now at Porto Venere, another place of enchanted nature. Also born at the time of the Genoese conquest in 1100 as a strategic fort. The decline of the antique role has saved the colors today, the atmospheres, the architectures of the villages, perched on its colorful houses plunging to the sea. It is known that the village enchanted even artists like George Byron, who in the late 1822 spent a period of his summer vacation here. Today, the Great Bay Area is dominated by suggestive and animated port and is overlooked by the Church of San Pietro, redone in Gothic Genoese form in the second half of the 13th century. The beauty of the place is today confirmed by its inscription to the list of the UNESCO, dedicated to the protected sites as Patrimony of Humanity. Belonging to the list of UNESCO, we also have the small beautiful islands in front of the village, and which you can reach with a wonderful boat ride. Palmaria, characterized by rich vegetation and steep cliffs and suggestive caves, and the Isola del Tino, which still conserves the rooter of the Abbazia di San Venerio from the 9th century. An unforgettable promenade leaving Porto Venere is that to another magical place of the Levante coast, the Cinque Terre. 5 small villages grouped to a hard and impervious coast today become a famous stop for many tourists. Infinite terraces connected by small railways on which small electrical wagons run have dug the mountain in the search for earth and life. Many of the old vines are still abandoned, forgotten by the new touristic businesses, yet the area still manages to produce wines of great quality, such as the rare Sciacquetra. The Cinque Terre, also included in the UNESCO's list for World Patrimony, are Corniglia, Monterosso al Mare, Vernazza, Manarola, and Rio Maggiore. The last village we want to visit in coast of Levante is Camogli, one of the oldest and purest angles of the region. The little port, inhabited only by fishing and touristic boats, is colored and fascinating, and dominated and protected by the Basilica di Santa Maria Assunta. It is at the peak, overlooking the sea, and the cannons, which are at the foot of the small Castel Dragone, which invites the Acquario Tirrenico. Let us fly now on the other side of the region, the Riviera di Ponente. Noli invites us with its beautiful beach, which embraces one of the most genuine and preserved villages of the Liguria. An old castle still tries to frighten us from above the hill that dominates the Gulf, and in fact it must have functioned quite well if we consider that the small city of Byzantine origin, and by the name which imitates Neapolis, New City, was next to the most important ones of Pisa, Amalfi, Venezia, and Genoa, one of the most prosperous and celebrate marine republics of Italy. Today, the village has become a well-known place of vacation. It is enchanting and suggestive, and is perfect and integrated in its beautiful medieval memory. Let us continue through the beautiful panoramic road that follows the coast as we discover new angles and localities of great recall and interest. Here we discover Finalborgo, a place that in its regular urban implant, it well reflects its origin of medieval new village. The 15th century stone and integral walls give it its personality, and the noble architecture created from the second half of the 15th century to the beginning of the 18th century. Proceeding ahead, we then enter to Albenga, always in perfect medieval implant, is surely one of the most interesting of the Riviera di Ponente. Probably for the distancing of the sea caused in century, which today keeps it more than a kilometer from the old city. The original urban implantation is Roman and once was called Albingaunum, in other words, Città dei Liguri in Gauni. In the center of the city, we can see a cathedral, an edifice which conserves beautiful sculptures of the Romantic era. Next to it, we see the Battistero, the main Paleo-Christian monument of all Liguria. The town had international resonance in 1950 for the discovery in its waters of one of the biggest Roman ships ever found. From it, they recuperated around 1,000 amphoras, which are preserved today in the small Museo Navale Romano. It may be strange that a place could become so famous even overseas for a wall, but in fact that is what happened in Alassio, another beautiful marine city, famous for its little brick wall on which, according to the consolidated tradition, there are an infinite amount of colored slabs, all signed by famous artists of the art and entertainment world. An elegant and mundane place which naturally becomes over-frequented in full August. They even elect a mist brick wall during this month, although it may also be appreciated for its many other natural attractions. We are coming close to the border with France, and our discoveries are still to come. Here we are in Sanremo, a place that is known worldwide now thanks to its great casino and the famous music festival. The city is in fact lively and sunny. It is elegant in its urban liberty structures, embellished by splendid beaches and colored by one of the most important floral markets in the world. The city is also full of monuments and important historic memories. The small fort of Santa Tecla, constructed by the Genoese, the Gothic Romantic Cathedral of San Siro, constructed during the 13th century on the remains of a Paleo-Christian church. The suggestive neighborhood of La Pigna, with its small arched streets that crawl towards the mountain. An Orthodox cathedral, San Basilio, constructed at the end of the 19th century. In the end, we have the Santuario della Madonna della Costa, dating 17th, 18th century, from which one can admire a wonderful panorama of the city and of the Gulf. We wish to conclude our short trip of the Liguria in some of the places far from the sea. This is Dolceacqua, a small hill dominated by a superb castle of the Doria family. All of this surrounded by an extremely elegant and preserved medieval bridge. Another and much longer bridge, built at the same time of the Roman era, invites us to Taggia, another small town of strong medieval personality. And again, we have the village of Pigna, hung to the mountain and embraced by suggestive lanes connected by vaulted arches. But maybe the most interesting and fascinating of them all is that of Triora, hanging on a cliff 800 meters high. Today, it is a fascinating small town made of narrow medieval streets in an extremely fairy tale scenario. Even if the fame of the town does not derive straight from the fairy tales, but from the witches. Here, in fact, in 1587, one of the most famous trials of witchery of the time took place. As of today, the village lives on the fame of this macabre story, and every angle reminds us of a witch or of a demonic action. Even the small and suggestive ethnographic museum, that has also a splendid room dedicated to the farming civilization of the territory, presents a section in which we can see the drawings of the famous and terrible trial of the time. Yet these obscure and hard memories do not manage to cancel the image of a region that makes his hospitality and vitality its vanity and remarkable beauty. With an international fame which is conserved with pride and simplicity by its inhabitants, people of the sea and the mountain that even with the touristic invasion still manage to preserve its memories and beauty of a unique and wise land which always looks ahead towards its bright and sunny and important future.